The champagne cork popped with a sound that felt like a gunshot to my chest. My brothers, Timothy and Robert, were toasting their victory while I sat at the far end of the conference table, staring at the termination papers they'd just slid across the mahogany surface. "To the future of Morrison Industries," Timothy declared, raising his glass high, "finally free to reach its full potential, just the tech support," Robert added with a smirk, looking directly at me. "That's all you ever were, Natalie. Dad kept you around out of pity, but we're running a business, not a charity." I picked up the papers with steady hands, though inside I was seething. 23 years of my life dedicated to this company, and they'd reduced me to just the tech support. "My name is Natalie Morrison, and I'm 41 years old. I was 17 when I started working at my father's manufacturing company, Morrison Industries. Back then, it was a struggling operation making basic household fixtures, doorknobs, hinges, cabinet handles. Nothing revolutionary, nothing special, just enough to keep the lights on and food on the table." My brothers were different from me from the start. Timothy, 5 years older, went to business school and came back with an MBA and an ego the size of Texas. Robert, 3 years older, studied marketing and returned convinced he was Don Draper reincarnated. They wore expensive suits, talked about synergy and market penetration, and looked at spreadsheets like they were holy scripture. I was the weird one, the girl who preferred the factory floor to the boardroom, who spent her free time taking apart machines to see how they worked, who taught herself coding because I thought it was fun. When other teenagers were at parties, I was in Dad's workshop, tinkering with designs and dreaming up improvements. "You've got the mind of an engineer," Dad used to say, ruffling my hair as I showed him my latest creation, maybe even an inventor. But to Timothy and Robert, I was just their little sister playing with tools. When I developed our first computerized manufacturing system at 22, they called it Natalie's Little Project. When I created the smart lock system that became our bestseller, they presented it to clients as a team effort while I sat silent in the corner, running the technical demos. The truth was, I'd been the driving force behind every major innovation at Morrison Industries for the past 2 decades. While my brothers focused on sales and marketing, I revolutionized our entire product line. Smart locks that could be controlled by phone apps, hinges with built-in sensors for security systems, cabinet hardware with fingerprint recognition. Every patent filed under the company name had my signature as the inventor. But there was something my brothers never bothered to understand about patent law, something that would soon become very, very important. "Are you going to sign those papers, or just stare at them?" Timothy asked impatiently, checking his Rolex. "We have a meeting with the Koreans in an hour. Big distribution deal for the smart home line." The smart home line, my smart home line, the one I'd developed over 5 years of late nights and weekends, perfecting every circuit, every line of code, every mechanical component. "Of course," I said quietly, signing my name with a flourish. "I'll clean out my office today." "That won't be necessary," Robert interjected. "We've already had security pack your things. They're in the lobby. We'll need your keycard and company phone before you leave." 23 years reduced to a cardboard box in the lobby. I stood up, placed my keycard and phone on the table, and headed for the door. "Oh, and Natalie?" Timothy called out. "The non-compete clause means you can't work for any competitor for 5 years, just so we're clear." I turned back and gave them a smile, not my usual, accommodating smile, something sharper, crystal clear. "Timothy, enjoy your meeting with the Koreans." As I walked out of the building I'd spent half my life in, carrying a pathetic box of personal items, I pulled out my personal phone and made a single call. "Harrison, it's Natalie Morrison. Remember that contingency plan we discussed? It's time to execute it." Harrison Chen was my patent attorney, a friend from my brief stint at engineering school before Dad guilt-tripped me into joining the family business. He'd been begging me for years to file patents under my own name, warning me about the risks of assigning everything to the company. "They finally did it?" he asked, not sounding surprised. "Just now, voted me out, 2-1. Dad's shares were split between them after he died, so they had the majority, and they have no idea about." "None," I confirmed. "They never read the fine print, never asked why some patents were filed differently than others. They just assumed everything belonged to the company." Here's what my MBA-educated brothers failed to understand. There are 2 types of patent assignments. The first assigns all rights to the company immediately upon filing. The second, the type I'd been using for the past 5 years, grants the company a license to use the patent while I retained ownership. It was a subtle difference in paperwork, one that required careful reading to catch. But Timothy and Robert never read the technical documents. That was Natalie's department. "How many patents are we talking about?" Harrison asked. 17, I said, settling into my car. Every product in the smart home line, every improvement to the manufacturing process, the entire codebase for the app ecosystem. Morrison Industries has been operating under license agreements that are tied to my employment, which terminated today. I agreed. How fast can you prepare the cease and desist letters? I've had them drafted for 2 years, Harrison admitted. I just need to add today's date and hit send. Natalie, are you sure about this? This is going to get ugly. I thought about 23 years of being overlooked, dismissed, and diminished, of watching my brothers take credit for my innovations while treating me like a glorified mechanic, of board meetings where they'd interrupt my technical explanations to tell clients not to worry about all that complicated stuff. Send them, I said, every single one. That weekend was quiet. I spent it in my home workshop, the one place where I'd always felt truly myself. I'd converted my garage into a makerspace years ago, complete with 3D printers, CNC machines, and every tool I could ever need. This was where the real magic happened, where ideas became prototypes became products. My phone buzzed occasionally, messages from former colleagues wondering what had happened, a few friends checking in. I ignored them all. I had work to do. Monday morning arrived with the kind of beautiful sunshine that felt like the universe was in on the joke. At exactly 9 a.m., as I knew Timothy and Robert would be settling into their offices with their morning coffee, Harrison's letters would be arriving via courier, email, and fax simultaneously. No chance of claiming they didn't receive them. At 9:07, my phone rang. Timothy. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:09, Robert called. Also straight to voicemail. At 9:13, they called together from Timothy's office phone. This time, I answered, "Good morning, brothers. How was the meeting with the Koreans? What have you done?" Timothy's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I've exercised my rights as a patent holder," I said calmly, "since I'm no longer employed by Morrison Industries. The license agreements for my patents are void. You'll need to cease and desist all manufacturing, sales, and distribution of the affected products immediately." "You can't do this," Robert sputtered. "Those patents belong to the company. You developed them as an employee. Actually, if you check the filing documents, you'll see that I developed them as an independent contractor. Remember 5 years ago when you restructured my employment to save on benefits? You had me sign a new contract that classified me differently for tax purposes. That change allowed me to retain ownership of any patents I developed." Silence. I could practically hear them scrambling for the documents. But you still assigned them to the company," Timothy protested weakly. "I licensed them to the company. Big difference. The license was contingent on my continued employment. Page 47 of my contract, subsection 12b. But I'm guessing neither of you read that far." "This is blackmail," Robert shouted. "No, this is business. Isn't that what you told me on Friday? You're running a business, not a charity. The smart home line represents 73% of our revenue." Timothy's voice had gone from angry to panicked. "You're trying to destroy Dad's company." "Dad's company made doorknobs and hinges," I replied. "I transformed it into a smart home manufacturer, and you just fired the person responsible for that transformation. We'll sue." "Please do. I'd love to see you explain to a judge how you never bothered to read the contracts you signed, how you never questioned why the tech support was named as inventor on every major patent, how you voted out the person whose innovations kept your company afloat." More silence. Then, Timothy's voice, smaller now. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted," I said. "Respect, recognition, and fair compensation for my contributions." "We can't just undo the termination," Robert said. "The board would need to vote, and we'd look like idiots. Then I guess you'll need to find new products to sell." "Might I suggest going back to basic doorknobs? Though even those might be tricky. I hold the patents on the improved manufacturing process." I hung up and went back to my workshop. On my bench sat my latest project, a revolutionary smart home hub that would make everything Morrison Industries sold obsolete. I'd been developing it in secret for months, knowing this day would come eventually. The calls continued throughout the day. Timothy and Robert, their lawyers, board members who'd suddenly realized their cash cow was about to disappear. I ignored them all, focusing on my work. Tuesday brought a formal letter from Morrison Industries' legal team, threatening action for corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets. Harrison responded with a detailed breakdown of exactly which patents I owned and why their claims were baseless. He also pointed out that any attempt to continue selling products based on my patents would result in immediate legal action. Wednesday, the panic really set in. Their Korean distributors were threatening to cancel the deal. Existing orders couldn't be fulfilled without violating the cease and desist. The stock price had dropped 30% on rumors of production difficulties. Thursday, Timothy showed up at my house. He looked terrible, unshaven, wrinkled suit, the kind of desperation in his eyes I'd never seen before. "Natalie, please," he said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." I let him in but didn't offer coffee. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Definitely. "We were wrong," he said without preamble. "Robert and I, we let our egos get in the way. We've always been jealous of how easily things came to you. How Dad lit up when you showed him your inventions. We're the ones with the fancy degrees, but you're the one who made the company successful. And yet you called me just the tech support." He winced. "I know. It was cruel and stupid. We convinced ourselves that sales and marketing were what mattered, that the products would sell themselves. But without your innovations, you have nothing to sell," I finished. "The board is furious. We're facing lawsuits from distributors. Our credit line is in jeopardy. And Robert had a panic attack yesterday, had to go to the hospital." I felt a twinge of sympathy but pushed it down. They'd had 23 years to show me respect. It had taken less than a week without me for them to realize my value. "What are you proposing?" I asked. "Come back," he said immediately. "Full partnership, equal voting rights, and retroactive compensation for all patents. We'll restructure everything, make you chief technology officer, whatever you want." "I don't want to be chief technology officer," I said. "I want to be what I've always been, the heart of this company's innovation. But this time, with the recognition and compensation I deserve. Name your terms." I'd been thinking about this moment for days, years. "Really, 51% ownership. I want majority control." Timothy's face went white. The board would never approve that. Then the board can watch Morrison Industries go back to making basic hardware while I launch my own company with my patents and innovations. Your choice." "You'd really destroy Dad's legacy over this?" "Dad's legacy was teaching me to value my worth," I said firmly. "You and Robert destroyed it when you decided I was expendable. I'm offering to rebuild it, but on my terms." He left without agreeing, but I knew they'd be back. The numbers didn't lie. Without my patents, Morrison Industries was worth less than the building it operated in. They'd spent years building a sales and distribution network for products only I could legally produce. It took another week of negotiations, threats, and increasingly desperate offers before they finally agreed. 51% ownership, full control over all technical development, and a seat on the board as Chief Innovation Officer, a title I created for myself. The signing ceremony was held in the same conference room where they'd terminated me 2 weeks earlier. The champagne was gone, replaced by somber faces and legal documents. Timothy and Robert looked diminished, their usual bravado replaced by hard-learned humility. "For what it's worth," Robert said as I signed the papers that would make me majority owner, "we're sorry. We should have valued you from the beginning." "Yes," I agreed, "you should have, but I wasn't interested in dwelling on the past. I had a company to run, innovations to develop, and a legacy to build." The girl they'd dismissed as just the tech support now owned the kingdom they'd tried to rule without her. The first thing I did as majority owner was institute a company-wide patent review. Turns out, I wasn't the only one whose contributions had been overlooked. Several engineers had ideas that had been shelved because they weren't marketable enough according to my brother's narrow vision. Within 6 months, we'd launched 3 new product lines based on previously ignored innovations. The smart home hub I'd been developing became our flagship product, integrating all our existing systems into one seamless experience. Timothy and Robert, to their credit, adapted to the new reality. They focused on what they did best, sales and marketing, while leaving the innovation to me and my expanded team. They even started attending my technical presentations, finally bothering to understand the products they were selling. The company thrived under the new structure. Turns out, when you value the people who create your products as much as the people who sell them, success follows naturally. We went from a regional manufacturer to a national brand, then international. The patents I'd retained became the foundation for an entire ecosystem of smart home products. But the real satisfaction came from smaller moments, like when a young engineer came to me with an idea and knew it would be heard, not dismissed. Like when my name appeared first on the company letterhead, Morrison Industries, a Natalie Morrison company. Like when Timothy introduced me at a conference as the genius behind everything we make. They'd thought I was just the tech support, a replaceable cog in their machine. They'd celebrated with champagne when they voted me out, confident in their decision to remove the weak link. They'd learned the hard way that in a technology company, the person who holds the patents holds the power, And sometimes, the quiet one in the corner, the one taking notes and solving problems, is the most dangerous person in the room. Not because I'd planned revenge, I'd simply protected myself. Not because I wanted to destroy them, I wanted to build something better. But because when you systematically undervalue someone for decades, when you dismiss their contributions and diminish their worth, you create your own downfall. My brothers had thought they were the kings of Morrison Industries. They'd forgotten that every king needs a kingdom, and I'd been the one building it all along. When they kicked me out, they discovered that without the builder, all they had was an empty castle and a throne with no power. Now, I sit in that conference room, my conference room, and look at the framed patent certificates lining the walls, each one a reminder of what I built, what I protected, and what I've earned. The champagne cork had sounded like a gunshot that day, but it wasn't my funeral they were celebrating. It was their own.
The detective's badge read Martinez, and his partner said Thompson, but all I could focus on was the folder of photographs spread across my kitchen table. My hands shook as I picked up each image. A 2-story colonial in Westchester, granite countertops, hardwood floors, a pool I'd never swim in, all purchased with my credit, my name, my stolen identity. Ms. Reeves, Detective Martinez said gently, when did you last speak with your sister? Thanksgiving, I managed, staring at a photo of the master bedroom where, apparently, my sister Chloe had been sleeping for the past 8 months. She needed to borrow my laptop to job hunt. Said hers was broken. Detective Thompson made a note. And you gave it to her. For an hour, maybe 2. I was cooking, she was in the living room. I trailed off, remembering how grateful Chloe had seemed. How she hugged me and said I was the only family who still believed in her after her bankruptcy. That's likely when she accessed your personal information, Martinez said. We found searches on your laptop for how to apply for a mortgage online and documents needed for home purchase. I laughed, sharp and bitter. She couldn't even Google how to steal from me on her own computer. Actually, Thompson interjected, that was smart. If the searches were discovered, they traced back to you, not her. Made it look like you were researching the purchase yourself. Smart. Chloe had always been smart. Valedictorian in high school, full ride to Cornell, the daughter my parents bragged about while I quietly got my nursing degree from community college. But somewhere between the MBA and the third startup failure, Smart had twisted into something else. How did you discover the fraud? Martinez asked. I applied for a car loan last week. Nothing fancy, just a used Honda. They denied me. I pulled up the email on my phone. Said I had too much debt, specifically a $450,000 mortgage. I thought it was a mistake. When did you realize it wasn't? When I pulled my credit report and saw the address. 47 Meadowbrook Lane. I drove there yesterday thinking I'd find some stranger who'd stolen my identity. Instead, I saw Chloe's BMW in the driveway, the one she told me she'd sold to pay off debts. The detectives exchanged glances. Martinez pulled out another folder, this one thicker. There's more to this case, he said carefully. The house at 47 Meadowbrook has an interesting history. The previous owner was Harold Whitman. Heard of him? I shook my head. He died last year. No family, no will. The house went to auction for back taxes. Your sister, or rather you, according to the paperwork, bought it for significantly under market value. Lucky her, I said bitterly. Perhaps luckier than she knew. Martinez pulled out more photos. These showed walls with holes cut in them, floorboards pried up, insulation pulled away. Mr. Whitman was what we call a cash hoarder. Depression-era mindset, didn't trust banks. We estimate he hid money throughout that house for 40 years. Hidden money? I blinked. Like in the walls? Exactly like in the walls. Also under floorboards, inside fake electrical outlets, behind bathroom tiles. Your sister found some of it during renovations. But here's the interesting part, Thompson leaned forward. She only found about $30,000. We know this because she's been depositing it slowly into various accounts, trying to avoid CTR requirements. CTR? Currency transaction reports. Banks have to file them for cash deposits over $10,000. She's been keeping it under that limit. So there's $30,000 hidden in the house she stole using my name. Martinez smiled for the first time. No, Ms. Reeves. According to our investigation and the forensic accountant we consulted, there's approximately $200,000 still hidden in that house. Your sister found one small catch. She has no idea about the rest. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. $200,000? Conservative estimate. Could be more. Mr. Whitman sold his plumbing business in 1987 for $500,000 cash. His bank records show he only deposited about $50,000 of it. The rest went somewhere. And since the house is in my name, legally you own that house and everything in it, Thompson confirmed. Your sister committed identity theft and fraud. The paperwork is technically valid. You're the legal owner. I stood abruptly, needing to move, to process. My tiny apartment, the one where I'd lived for 6 years saving for a house I couldn't afford because my credit was mysteriously ruined, suddenly felt like a cage. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you, Martinez said. We have enough evidence to arrest Chloe for identity theft, fraud, forgery. She's looking at serious jail time. But we wanted to talk to you first, see if you want to pursue charges. If I don't, then she gets away with it, continues living in your house, eventually finds the rest of the money, probably destroys your credit further. And if I do, we arrest her today. The house remains yours legally. You can take possession immediately. I thought about Chloe, my older sister who taught me to ride a bike, who'd smacked me into R-rated movies, who'd slowly transformed from my hero into someone I barely recognized. The family favorite who'd somehow become the family failure, one excuse at a time. She has kids, I said quietly, 2 daughters, 7 and 9. The detectives exchanged another look. They're not there, Thompson said gently. They live with their father in Connecticut, have for the past 2 years. Another lie. She told everyone she had split custody, that the girls stayed with her every other week. I'd sent birthday presents to that stolen house, imagining my nieces opening them in their bedrooms. I need to see it, I said suddenly. The house. Before I decide anything. Martinez nodded. We can arrange that. We'll need to go with you, and Chloe can't know we're coming. Is she there now? Thompson checked his phone. According to her social media, she's at a spa day in a city, posted about self-care for successful women an hour ago. Successful women, living in a house bought with her sister's stolen identity. An hour later, we stood in front of 47 Meadowbrook Lane. It was beautiful, white colonial with black shutters, perfectly manicured lawn, the kind of house I dreamed about while working double shifts and saving every penny. The locksmith will meet us here, Martinez said. Legal requirement when serving a warrant, even though technically you own it. While we waited, I studied the neighborhood. Kids riding bikes, someone walking a golden retriever, normal suburban life happening around my sister's crime scene. The locksmith arrived and worked quickly. The door swung open to reveal a Pinterest-perfect interior. Chloe had always had good taste, funded by other people's money, apparently. Don't touch anything yet, Thompson advised. We need to document everything for evidence. We walked through slowly. Every room was staged like a magazine shoot. The kitchen had appliances I'd never be able to afford. The living room featured furniture that cost more than my car. And everywhere, photos of Chloe. Chloe at graduations, mine wasn't displayed. Chloe with business partners. Chloe accepting awards for businesses that have failed. No photos of me, no photos of her daughters. Ms. Reeves, Martinez called from upstairs. You should see this. I climbed the stairs, hardwood, not a creak, and found him in what was clearly Chloe's office. Vision boards covered one wall. Dreams of wealth, success, fame. And in the center, a list titled Assets to Leverage. My name was at the top. Below it, excellent credit, stable income, too trusting. She planned this, I said numbly. For a while, based on these documents, Thompson said from the doorway. He held up folders. She researched your credit score, your savings patterns, even your work schedule. She knew exactly when to strike. I sank into the desk chair, ergonomic, expensive, and tried to process the betrayal. My own sister had studied me like a mark, had cataloged my trusting nature as an asset to exploit. Where's the money? I asked. The $30,000 she found. Martinez pointed to the corner of the room where a section of drywall had been poorly patched. Started there. Based on the deposit patterns, she's been finding about $5,000 at a time. And the rest? That's the interesting part. He pulled out a tablet, showing me thermal imaging scans. We had a specialist scan the house yesterday after getting a warrant. See these areas? He pointed to several bright spots on the walls. Those are inconsistencies in the insulation, classic signs of hidden catches. There are dozens of them. I breathed. 73, to be exact. Your sister found one by accident during renovation. She has no idea she's sitting on a fortune. The irony was delicious. Chloe, who'd stolen my identity for a house, was living above hundreds of thousands of dollars she didn't know existed. My phone buzzed. Chloe, texting from her spa day. Can you loan me $500? Spa went over budget and my cards are maxed. You know how I'm good for it. I showed the detectives. They documented it. The audacity, Thompson muttered. Make your decision, Ms. Reeves, Martinez said gently. Do we arrest her when she comes home, or do we leave and pretend this never happened? I looked around the office, at the vision boards, the expensive furniture, the life built on my stolen identity. Then I thought about my cramped apartment, my denied car loan, the vacation I couldn't take because my credit was ruined. Arrest her, I said quietly, but let me be gone when you do it. I don't want to see her face. And the house? The money? I'll take possession of what's legally mine. All of it. The next 3 hours were a blur. Papers signed, locks changed, security system passwords reset. A forensic accountant arrived to oversee the money extraction. They found $47,000 in the first bedroom alone, wrapped in plastic and tucked behind insulation. I sat on the front porch, my front porch, as they worked. Neighbors walked by curious. I wondered what Chloe had told them. Probably that she was a successful entrepreneur, not an identity thief living in her sister's name. My phone rang, an unknown number. This is a collect call from the Westchester County Detention Center. I declined and blocked the number. By evening, they'd found $183,000. Still more to go, the specialist assured me. But they needed proper equipment to get to some of the harder-to-reach places without damaging the house. My house. What will you do now? Martinez asked as they prepared to leave. I don't know, I admitted. This morning I was worried about affording a used Honda. Now I own a house and have almost $200,000 in cash that smells like old insulation. It's legally yours, he reminded me. The previous owner is deceased, no heirs. You own the house and contents. Your sister's crime doesn't change that. After they left, I wandered through the house, my house, trying to process it all. In the kitchen, I found Chloe's journal. Recent entry, found another $5,000 today. At this rate, I'll have enough to flee the country by Christmas. Becca will never even know what hit her. Becca. She'd nicknamed me that in kindergarten. Now she was planning to destroy my credit and run, leaving me to clean up the mess. I called my parents from Chloe's kitchen, my kitchen. Mom answered on the second ring. Becca. How are you, sweetheart? Chloe was just telling us about her new business venture. So proud of her for bouncing back. Mom, Chloe's been arrested. Silence. Then, what? That's impossible. We just talked to her this morning. She was at a spa. She was at a spa she couldn't afford, in a house she bought with my identity, spending money she found hidden in the walls. I don't understand. So I explained. Everything. The identity theft, the house, the hidden money, the journal planning to flee. With each word, I heard my mother's breathing grow heavier. But she said she turned her life around. She said the house was from a successful investment. The investment was my credit score, Mom. You must be mistaken. Chloe would never. I'm sitting in her kitchen right now. My kitchen, technically, since she bought it with my identity. The police just finished extracting $183,000 from inside the walls. Hidden money. This sounds like some sort of movie plot. Becca, are you feeling all right? Even now, even with evidence, they couldn't believe their golden child was a criminal. I wasn't surprised, disappointed, but not surprised. I have to go, Mom. I need to figure out what to do with my new house. Becca, wait. If this is true, you won't really let them prosecute her, will you? She's your sister. She stole my identity, ruined my credit, and was planning to flee the country. Yes, I'm prosecuting. But what about her daughters, who live with their father because she lost custody 2 years ago? Those daughters. More silence. The golden child's facade was cracking, one lie at a time. I hung up and continued my tour. The master bedroom, my bedroom now, had a walk-in closet bigger than my apartment bedroom. The bathroom had a soaking tub I'd dreamed about after long nursing shifts. In the basement, I found renovation supplies and a sledgehammer. Chloe must have been looking for more money herself. Amateur work, based on the mess. The professionals would find much more. My phone buzzed. A text from my landlord. Rent is due on the 1st. No extensions this time. I looked around my house, my fully paid-for house, and laughed. Then cried. Then laughed again. The next morning, Detective Martinez called with an update. Chloe had been formally charged with identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Her bail was set at $100,000. She asked if he'd bail her out, he said. Said you owe her for all the time she helped you with homework in school. Homework? She means the time she made me do hers so she could party. I'll tell the DA that's a no. Definite no. Also, the forensic team wants to return today. They think there's significant money in the basement foundation. I agreed, then called in sick to work. First time in 5 years. My supervisor was shocked. Are you okay, Becca? This isn't like you. I'm fine, I said, staring at my reflection in clothes. My bathroom mirror. Just dealing with some family issues. The forensic team found another $67,000 that day. The basement foundation had a hidden compartment that Chloe's amateur demolition had missed by inches. They also found bonds, likely worth another small fortune once evaluated. Mr. Whitman was very thorough, the lead investigator said. We've seen hoarders before, but this level of organization is rare. He kept records too, coded, but we're working on them. By the end of the week, the total found exceeded $300,000. My sister had lived above a fortune while planning to steal pennies from my future. The legal process moved quickly. Chloe tried to claim I'd given her permission, but the journal entries and her Google searches from my laptop destroyed that defense. The prosecutor said she'd likely get 3 to 5 years. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was too busy moving into my house, setting up the life Chloe had tried to steal. The irony wasn't lost on me. She committed fraud to get this house, never knowing she was sitting on enough legal money to buy it outright. My parents eventually came around, though they still send letters to Chloe in prison. They don't visit me at the house. Too painful, Mom says, to see what Chloe lost. I don't correct her. Chloe didn't lose this house. I gained it. 6 months later, I got a letter from Chloe. Not an apology, she's not capable of that. Instead, complaints about prison food and requests for money in her commissary account. At the bottom, almost an afterthought. Did you ever find anything else in the house? I didn't respond. Let her wonder. Let her spend her nights in a cell, thinking about the walls she never checked, the fortune she never found. I kept one photo of us from childhood, before she became the golden child and I became the mark. 2 sisters on a swing set, laughing. I don't know when she stopped seeing me as family and started seeing me as an opportunity, but I hope she remembers that photo too. The house is different now. I've made it mine, photos of friends, my nursing degree on the wall, no vision boards about leveraging other people's assets. The money is invested properly, growing legally, secured against any future attempts at theft. Sometimes I walk through the rooms and think about chances. The chance that Chloe chose to steal from me. The chance that she picked that exact house. The chance that Harold Whitman distrusted banks enough to create my unexpected fortune. Mostly though, I just live. In my house, bought with my stolen identity, funded by money my sister never found. Justice has a strange sense of humor sometimes, and occasionally it hides $300,000 in the walls. The NICU was supposed to be sacred. 24 weeks and 3 days. That's when my son Oliver decided to make his entrance into the world. 1 pound, 7 ounces of pure fight wrapped in wires and tubes. The doctors called him a micro-preemie. I called him my miracle. For 2 months, I lived in that hospital. The Ronald McDonald House became my second home, and the rhythmic beeping of Oliver's monitors became my lullaby. Oxygen saturation, heart rate, respiratory rate. I could read those numbers in my sleep. Actually, I did read them in my sleep, jolting awake every time they dipped even slightly. My husband Daniel worked double shifts to keep our insurance active. We'd already burned through our savings during the emergency C-section and the first month of care. But Oliver was gaining weight, breathing more on his own. The doctors were optimistic. Maybe another month, Dr. Patel had said. He's a fighter. That's when my parents decided to visit. They'd been absent for most of the crisis, too busy with my younger brother Connor's senior year of college. He was pre-law at Stanford, their golden child who could do no wrong. While I'd been sleeping in hospital chairs, they'd been attending his mock trial competitions and fraternity parent weekends. "We're finally coming to meet our grandson," Mom announced over the phone, as if 2 months late was right on schedule. "Connor has a big interview with a law firm tomorrow, so we'll swing by on our way." Swing by, like the night's U was a drive-through. They arrived at 3 p.m., dressed like they were going to a country club. Mom wrinkled her nose at the hand sanitizer requirement. Dad kept checking his phone. Connor slouched and looking bored, his hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "So small," Mom murmured, peering at Oliver through the incubator. "Are you sure he's normal?" "He's premature, Mom. He's perfect. He just needs time to grow." Connor barely glanced at Oliver before pulling out his phone. "Shit, my phone's dying. Where can I charge this?" "Language," Mom chided gently, then looked around. "He really does need to charge it, honey. His interview call is in an hour." "There's a family lounge down the hall," I said, not taking my eyes off Oliver. He was having a good day, only on 30% oxygen, his little chest rising and falling steadily. "That's too far," Connor whined. "They'll have bad reception there." That's when Dad spotted it, the red outlet next to Oliver's incubator. The one with the bright yellow medical equipment only, do not unplug sticker. The one powering Oliver's oxygen monitor and pulse oximeter. "Perfect," he said, reaching for the cords. "Dad, no." I lunged forward, but he'd already unplugged the pulse oximeter to make room for Connor's iPhone charger. The alarms exploded instantly. Not just beeps, screaming, wailing electronic shrieks that brought nurses running. Oliver's oxygen monitor flickered and died as Dad fumbled with the cords, trying to plug Connor's phone in. "What's the big deal?" Mom said as nurses flooded in. "He has an important call." "Move ye." The charge nurse, Patricia, shoved past them to Oliver. His lips were turning dusky. Without the monitors, we couldn't see his oxygen levels, couldn't track his heart rate. She manually checked his pulse while another nurse rushed to reconnect everything. "His O2 is dropping," Patricia barked. "Get respiratory here now." I watched in horror as they increased his oxygen, worked over his tiny body. Those 2 minutes felt like 2 years. Finally, the monitors flickered back online. Oxygen at 82%. Too low. Heart rate elevated. My baby was struggling. "Stop overreacting," Dad said to the nurses. "Babies are tough. He's fine." Patricia turned on him with fury I'd never seen. "Get out. Security is on their way." "You can't kick us out," Mom protested. "We're family." "You just endangered a critical patient," Patricia snapped. "You unplugged life support EQIP mate. Get out before I have you arrested." Connor, oblivious to the chaos, was complaining about his phone only being at 15%. "Can't you plug it in for just 5 minutes? My interview." "Out," I screamed, finding my voice. "G-out." Security arrived and escorted them away, Mom huffing about rudeness, Dad muttering about oversensitive millennials, Connor still whining about his phone. Oliver spent the next 12 hours struggling. His oxygen requirements increased. He had 2 bradycardia episodes, his heart rate dropping dangerously low. Dr. Patel was called in at midnight. "He was doing so well," she said softly. "Sometimes these setbacks, we'll watch him closely." I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Daniel flew back from a work trip, taking emergency leave. We sat vigil while Oliver fought to restabilize. 3 days. 3 days of progress lost because my parents thought a phone call mattered more than my baby's life. But here's what my parents didn't know. The NICU has cameras. Everything is recorded. Every second of their entitled negligence was captured in high definition. The hospital's legal department was very interested in the footage, especially when Patricia filed an incident report. They also didn't know that Daniel's best friend from college was now a medical malpractice attorney. Not that we were suing the hospital. They'd done everything right. But Jake knew other lawyers. Lawyers who specialize in things like criminal endangerment of a minor, reckless engagement, and interestingly, elder abuse law, because it turns out deliberately sabotaging medical equipment is a crime, regardless of the patient's age. While Oliver fought to recover, I made phone calls. The first was to Stanford Law School's ethics board. Did they know one of their star students had endangered an infant's life? That there was video evidence of them standing by while medical equipment was unplugged for his convenience. Law firms, I learned, were very interested in the moral character of their potential hires. The second was to my father's employer. He worked in hospital administration. Ironically enough, his boss was horrified to learn about the NACTU incident. Liability concerns, you understand. The third was to Adult Protective Services, not for elder abuse, but to report to adults who clearly couldn't comprehend basic safety warnings. If they'd unplug life support equipment for a phone charger, what else might they do? Perhaps they needed evaluation. But the real revenge started with Connor's interview. See, my little brother had always bragged about his connections. How he was networking his way to the top. How his Instagram showed the perfect law student life. 50K followers watching his journey to legal stardom. What he didn't know was that I'd been screenshotting everything for years. Every post where he bragged about cheating on exams. Every story showing him drunk at parties while claiming to be studying. Every DM he'd sent to girls from his throwaway account, the one he didn't know I knew about. The legal community is small. Smaller than Connor realized. When partners at law firms started receiving anonymous packages with printed screenshots, with video of the NACTU incident, with documentation of Connor Fitzgerald's true character, well, interviews started getting canceled. I don't understand, he texted me frantically. Every firm suddenly says they're going in a different direction. Even my safety schools rejected me. I didn't reply. I was too busy holding Oliver, who was finally stable enough for kangaroo care, skin-to-skin contact. His tiny body against my chest, his heart beating against mine. Alive. Despite everything. My parents tried to do damage control. Mom posted on Facebook about being kicked out for simply trying to help our son prepare for his future. The comments didn't go the way she expected. Turns out, NICU nurses have social media too, and they have opinions about people who unplug medical equipment. The post went viral for all the wrong reasons. Screenshots spread across parenting groups, medical professional forums, legal ethics discussions. #NSU Nightmare started trending. Connor's Instagram followers dropped by thousands daily as the story spread. Dad lost his job within a week. Hospital administration couldn't keep someone who'd shown such catastrophic judgment around medical equipment. Mom's book club politely suggested she take a break from attending. Their church small group suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Connor never did get that law firm job, or any law firm job. The legal community has a long memory, and the video of him standing there, annoyed about his phone battery while my baby struggled to breathe, became infamous in certain circles. He ended up taking a retail job, his Stanford law degree worthless in the face of his ruined reputation. But that wasn't the end. 3 months later, Oliver finally came home. 4 pounds of perfect baby boy, no longer needing oxygen support. The same week, I got a call from the district attorney's office. They reviewed the NACTU footage and were pressing charges. Reckless endangerment of a minor. Interference with life support equipment. The list went on. My parents needed lawyers, expensive ones. They drained their retirement fund fighting the charges, but video evidence is hard to dispute. Dad got 6 months in jail, Mom got probation and community service. Connor wasn't charged, but he was named in every news story. His legal career was over before it began. They tried to contact me throughout the trial, begging for forgiveness, for me to speak on their behalf. I never responded. I was too busy with Oliver's physical therapy, his developmental checkups, building a life they'd almost stolen from us. The universe has a funny way of balancing things out, though. Connor's important interview, it had been with Morrison and Associates. 2 years later, I was at a pediatric follow-up appointment when I struck up a conversation with another mom in the waiting room. Her name was Jennifer Morrison. Her husband was the hiring partner at Morrison and Associates. Wait, she said, eyes widening as I told her about Oliver's NICU stay. Connor Fitzgerald is your brother? He's the phone charger guy? Apparently the story had become legendary in their firm. A cautionary tale told to new hires about the importance of character. They dodged a bullet by not hiring him, she said. Anyone who would endanger a baby for a phone charge couldn't be trusted with clients' lives and livelihoods. Your son saved us from a terrible mistake, she said, then paused. Is he doing okay now? I showed her a photo on my phone. Oliver at 2 years old, chubby-cheeked and laughing, chasing bubbles in our backyard. No trace of the fragile micro-preemie who'd fought so hard to survive. He's perfect, I said. The last I heard about my family was from a cousin. They'd moved to a small apartment in another state, trying to escape the notoriety. Connor worked at a cell phone store. Ironically appropriate. Mom and Dad lived on Social Security, their savings gone to legal fees. They'd sent one final letter through the cousin. Pages of justifications, blame shifting, claims that I'd ruined their lives over a simple mistake. I threw it away unopened. Oliver was taking his first steps, and I didn't want to miss a second of it. Sometimes late at night, I still hear the phantom beeping of NICU monitors. But then I peek into Oliver's room, watch his chest rise and fall naturally, no wires attached, no alarms needed. He's 4 now, starting pre-K in the fall. Smart as a whip, the teachers say. Full of energy, a miracle. His favorite toy? A doctor's kit. He likes to check everyone's heartbeat with his plastic stethoscope. Beep, 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 he says, mimicking the monitors he no longer remembers. All good. Yes, baby, all good. And when he asks about grandparents, why he doesn't have any like his friends, I tell him a simplified truth. Some people aren't safe to be around, sweetheart, so we made our own family instead. Our chosen family includes Patricia, the charge nurse who saved his life and became his honorary grandmother. Dr. Patel, who cried happy tears at his first birthday party. The other NICU families who understood what we'd been through. Real family doesn't unplug your life support. Real family guards it with their own lives. Connor's phone. I heard he finally got it charged. Cost him everything, but hey, at least he didn't miss that important call. Though somehow, I doubt it was worth it. The interview he was so desperate to take. He failed it anyway. Turns out, when you're rattled from causing a medical emergency, you don't interview well. The universe has a sense of humor like that. Me? I sleep soundly now, knowing my son is safe. Knowing the people who endanger him can never come near him again. Knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate planning or calculated destruction. Sometimes it's simply documenting the truth and letting consequences follow naturally. They had no idea what was coming next. Neither did I, honestly. I had no master plan that day in the NICU. Just a mother's fury and a baby fighting to breathe. Turns out, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The smell hit me first. Acrylic and oil paint don't burn like normal fire. They create toxic smoke that clings to everything, seeping into walls and memory alike. I stood in the doorway of my studio apartment, watching 10 years of my life curl into ash while my sister Lauren filmed it on her phone. Real artists don't come from our family, she laughed, tossing another canvas onto the makeshift bonfire she'd built in my metal trash bin. Did you really think the Whitmore Museum wanted your amateur hour paintings? I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only watch as metamorphosis in blue the piece that had taken 6 months to complete, bubbled and blackened. Behind it, I could see the corner of Grief Study number 4, the painting I created after Dad died, melting into nothing. My phone buzzed. Elena Castillo, Director of Contemporary Art at the Whitmore. Looking forward to seeing your portfolio tomorrow. The committee is especially excited about the pieces you described. Tomorrow, my interview was tomorrow. The interview I'd waited 3 years for, the one that could launch my career, the one my sister had just made impossible. Why? I finally managed to whisper. Lauren shrugged, still recording. Mom told everyone at church that her daughter was having a show at the Whitmore. Do you know how embarrassing it was when Mrs. Patterson Googled it and found nothing? You've been lying to everyone. I said I had an interview for a potential exhibition. Same thing, and we both know they'll laugh you out of the building. I'm doing you a favor, Luna, saving you the humiliation. She kicked the bin, sending sparks and fragments of canvas across my hardwood floor. A decade of technique development, of emotional processing, of sleepless nights and breakthrough moments reduced to toxic smoke in her social media content. Besides, she added, pocketing her phone, I needed the attention off me for once. Kevin and I are getting divorced, and I don't need mom fawning over her artist daughter when I'm going through real problems. Real problems. As if watching your life's work burn wasn't real. She left me there with the ashes, the smoke detector shrieking, my neighbors starting to complain. I opened every window, turned on every fan, and sat on my floor until 3 a.m. cataloging the damage. 93 paintings. Gone. 47 sketches. Ash. 5 sculptures. Melted beyond recognition. 1 sister. Dead to me. But she'd made one crucial mistake. In her performative destruction, she'd forgotten about the storage unit across town where I kept my overflow work. 23 paintings remained. Not my best, not the ones the committee specifically wanted to see, but something. More importantly, she created evidence. That video she took, probably already posted to her Instagram story with some sanctimonious caption about protecting family from embarrassment. That was proof of destruction of property. Arson, technically, even if small scale. I didn't sleep. Instead, I did triage. I photographed every ash pile, every melted frame, every paint-stained corner of my apartment. I screenshotted her social media before she could delete it. I compiled a folder of the destroyed works. Thank God I documented everything for my website, with their creation dates, materials, dimensions, and the exhibitions where they'd shown. Then I called Elena Castillo. Luna, it's very early. There's been an incident, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. My portfolio was destroyed last night, but I'd like to keep our appointment if you're willing. Silence. Then, destroyed. My sister burned it. All of it. Well, most of it. I see. Do you have documentation? Yes, and police reports will be filed today. Come anyway, she said after a pause. Bring what you have. I arrived at the Whitmore Museum carrying a portfolio that smelled like smoke and dreams deferred. 23 paintings that represented maybe a quarter of my ability, and a laptop full of what used to exist. The security guard wrinkled his nose at the acrid smell clinging to my clothes. Elena Castillo was not what I'd expected. 60-something with silver hair in a severe bun, wearing architectural jewelry that could have been in the museum's collection. She took in my red eyes, my smoke-damaged portfolio case, the way my hands shook slightly. Show me, she said simply. I unpacked the survivors, mostly experimental pieces, the ones I deemed not good enough for prime display space. A series on urban decay that felt too obvious, some figure studies that weren't quite resolved. Competent work, but not the showstoppers she'd been promised. This is what remains, I said. But I brought documentation of what was lost. I opened my laptop, pulled up the folder, image after image of destroyed work, each one time-stamped, professionally photographed. Then the video, Lauren's video, downloaded before she could think to delete it. Elena watched in silence as my sister narrated her destruction, as canvases I'd bled for became fuel for her narcissism. When Lauren's voice rang out, "Real artists don't come from our family," Elena's expression shifted. "That's your sister." "Yes. And she destroyed your work because I had an opportunity she didn't." The truth distilled to its ugliest essence. Elena closed the laptop. "Tell me about Metamorphosis in Blue. I can see its destruction at the 047 mark of that video." So I told her how I'd layered 23 different shades of blue to capture the feeling of drowning in grief and surfacing into hope. How I'd scrapped it 4 times before finding the right texture. How it was about Dad's death, but also about everything that dies and gets reborn different. And grief study number 4. I talked for an hour, describing paintings that no longer existed, techniques I'd developed through failure and persistence, the way art had been my language when words failed. Elena asked about specific pieces she glimpsed in the destruction. She paused the video multiple times, I realized, studying what was being burned. "I've been in this business 40 years, she finally said. "I've seen family support artists and destroy them. I've never seen it quite this literally." She stood, walked to the window overlooking the sculpture garden. "We have a problem, Luna. I brought you in for our emerging artist showcase. The committee approved you based on a portfolio you submitted online. That work no longer exists." My heart sank. "However," she continued, "art isn't just about the final product. It's about resilience, vision, the ability to create in the face of destruction." She turned back to me. "What would you do if I gave you 6 weeks and full access to our artist residency studio?" "I'd recreate everything," I said immediately. "Not copies, evolutions. What those pieces would have become if they'd lived." "And your sister?" "Will face legal consequences for destruction of property valued at over $200,000. Alina's eyebrows rose. You've had them appraised. 3 pieces were sold to collectors last year. 5 were under consideration by galleries. The rest were professionally documented. Art has value, even if my family doesn't see it. 6 weeks, Alana said. You'll have studio space, materials budget, and a mentor. If you can produce a cohesive body of work that speaks to both loss and creation, we'll move forward with the exhibition. And if I can't? Then your sister was right. The challenge in her voice ignited something in me. She wasn't right. Prove it. I left the museum with a key card, a contract, and a fury that felt like fuel. Lauren had thought she was ending my career. Instead, she'd given me the one thing I'd never had: urgency. I filed the police report that afternoon. Destruction of property, criminal mischief, and because she'd posted the video online, possible harassment. The detective who took my statement was skeptical until I showed him the appraisals, the gallery correspondence, the documentation proving this wasn't just family drama but felony-level property damage. Lauren was served papers 2 days later. She called me screaming about betrayal, about family loyalty, about how I was ruining her life over some paintings. You ruined them first, I said, and hung up. The family explosion was predictable. Mom called, begging me to drop the charges. She's going through a divorce. She wasn't thinking clearly. She thought clearly enough to break into my apartment and commit arson. It wasn't arson. It was just a mistake. Have you seen the video, Mom? The one where she laughs while destroying a decade of my work. Silence. Then, you've always been jealous of Lauren. This is just revenge. I laughed, actually laughed. Jealous of what? Her failed marriage? Her inability to let anyone else succeed? Or her criminal record, which she's about to have? The studio space at the Whitmore was everything I dreamed of. North-facing windows, professional ventilation, more square footage than I'd ever had. I moved in like a woman possessed, working 18-hour days. But something strange happened. The paintings that emerged weren't recreations. They were autopsies. Each new piece dissected the loss of its predecessor, examining what it meant to create from ashes. I painted the smoke patterns on my walls. I painted Lauren's face reflected in burning canvas. I painted my own hands, helpless and heat-warped. The work was raw, angry, immediate in a way my previous paintings had never been. Where I'd once painted grief as blue waves, I now painted it as smoke inhalation. Where I'd once captured metamorphosis in abstract swirls, I now showed it as literal resurrection from ash. This is extraordinary, my mentor James said during week 3. Painful to look at, but extraordinary. It feels like I'm giving her credit, I admitted. Like she's part of my artistic narrative now. She is, James said simply. The question is whether you're the hero or victim of that narrative. Hero, victim. I've been both, but the paintings demanded I choose. So I chose hero, not the kind that forgives and forgets, but the kind that transforms trauma into truth. I painted my sister as Nero, fiddling while Rome burned. I painted myself as a phoenix, but one still partially ash, still partially flame, caught in the agony of becoming. The centerpiece was a diptych, before/after. On the left, a meticulous recreation of metamorphosis in blue from memory. On the right, the same composition but fractured, smoke damage, with new growth pushing through the cracks. It took 2 weeks alone, working from muscle memory and grief. While I painted, the legal process ground forward. Lauren hired a lawyer who tried to argue the destroyed work had no value, that I was exaggerating my losses. I countered with sales records, gallery contracts, and professional appraisals. Her own video became prosecution evidence, her narration proving intent. She tried bargaining, offered to pay for some canvases if I dropped the charges. When that failed, she played victim on social media, posting about how her mentally unstable sister was persecuting her during her divorce. I posted nothing, just painted. Week 5. Alana visited the studio. She walked through my new body of work in silence, spending long minutes with each piece. When she reached the diptych, she stood so still I thought she'd stop breathing. The committee needs to see this immediately, she said. The exhibition opened 6 weeks to the day after the burning. Phoenix work, creation after destruction, ran for 3 months at the Whitmore, featuring 35 new pieces created during the residency. The promotional materials included a single line about the circumstances of their creation, but the work spoke for itself. Opening night, the gallery was packed. Collectors, critics, other artists, but also my family. Mom came, dragging Dad, both looking uncomfortable among the wine and artistic discussion. Lauren wasn't there, of course. She was busy with court-ordered community service and restitution payments that would take her years to complete. "I don't understand it," Mom said, standing before the Nero painting. "Why would you paint your sister like this?" "Because this is what she did," I said. "This is what it looked like from my perspective. But she's not evil. She just made a mistake." I guided her to the video installation in the corner, where Lauren's destruction played on loop, her voice echoing. "Real artists don't come from our family. Does that look like a mistake to you?" Mom left without saying goodbye, but not before I saw her studying the price list. The Nero painting was marked at $15,000, more than I'd ever charged before. It sold that night. The review in Art Forum was brutal and beautiful. Luna Weaver's Phoenix work transforms personal destruction into universal truth. These paintings don't just document loss. They interrogate it, dissect it, and ultimately transcend it. The artist's sister may have been right that real artists don't come from our family, but she failed to realize she was speaking to one. By the end of the run, every piece had sold. The diptych went to a major collector for $50,000. Combined with the insurance payout for the destroyed work and the court-ordered restitution, I had enough to quit my day job and paint full-time. But the real vindication came later. Lauren, forced to pay me $300 monthly for the next 10 years, started her own blog about overcoming adversity. In her telling, she was the victim of a vindictive sister who criminalized a moment of emotional distress. The comments section told a different story. Someone had found her original video, the one she thought she'd deleted. It spread through art Twitter like wildfire. #RealArtists became a rallying cry for artists facing family opposition. Lauren's blog became a monument to her own crime, preserved forever in internet amber. She texted me last week, "I hope you're happy. You've ruined my life over some stupid paintings." I didn't respond. I was too busy preparing for my solo show at the Modern, the one Atlanta had arranged after the Whitmore's success. The theme, transformation through destruction. The marketing materials featured a single image, ashes in the shape of a phoenix. Real artists don't come from our family? Maybe not. But they do rise from the ashes of families who tried to burn them down. And sometimes, those ashes make the best paint. The opening is next month. I'm considering sending Lauren an invitation with a note. "Thank you for the materials." After all, she taught me that sometimes the best art comes from the worst intentions. That destruction can be creation waiting to happen. That real artists don't come from families, they survive them. And I am nothing if not a survivor, painting my way through the smoke. The call came while I was in a client meeting presenting quarterly projections to 15 executives. "Ms. Daniels, this is Mercy General Hospital calling to confirm your pre-operative appointment tomorrow for your kidney donation surgery scheduled for Thursday." I excused myself, my hands trembling. "I'm sorry, what surgery?" "Your kidney donation. For your sister, Vanessa Daniels. You're scheduled for final compatibility testing tomorrow at 9 a.m., surgery Thursday morning." I never agreed to donate a kidney. Silence. Then carefully. "Ma'am, we have all your paperwork on file. Signed consent forms, psychological evaluation, medical clearance. You've been approved as a living donor. Send me everything. Now." 20 minutes later, I was staring at documents with my forged signature. Medical histories filled out in my mother's handwriting. A psychological evaluation claiming I was eager to save my sister's life, conducted by a Dr. Matthews, who, I discovered, was my father's golf buddy. My parents had medically trafficked me. I called my father immediately. "Oh good, the hospital finally called," he said casually. "We were handling the scheduling to reduce your stress. You forged my signature on organ donation papers." Forge is a strong word. "We expedited the process." "Expedited? You're trying to steal my kidney." "Steal?" His voice turned cold. "Your sister is dying. You have 2 perfectly healthy kidneys. It's simple math. It's organ theft. It's family duty. Vanessa has been on dialysis for 6 months while you prance around with 2 kidneys you don't need." "I do need them. They're mine." "Stop being selfish, Caroline. We're your parents. We know what's best. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, then the police, then the hospital's ethics board. But the call that changed everything came from my sister Vanessa herself. "Car, please," she sobbed. "I know you're scared, but I'm dying. Please don't back out now." "Back out? Vanessa, I never agreed to this." "Mom said you did. She said you were just nervous about the surgery, so they were handling logistics. They forged my signature. They committed fraud." No, that's not. Mom said you signed everything weeks ago. She said you wanted to help but were too anxious to deal with details." "Vanessa, when have I ever been too anxious to handle my own medical decisions? I'm a healthcare administrator." Silence. Then quietly, "They said you'd already agreed." "They lied." The silence stretched longer. "Finally, I'm going to die without a kidney. There's a transplant list. I've been on it for 8 months. My kidneys are failing faster than expected. The doctors give me maybe 2 months without a transplant." My mind raced. My sister, my spoiled, enabled golden child sister who'd gotten everything while I'd gotten nothing, was dying. And my parents had decided my body was the solution. "Vanessa, did you know they forged the papers?" "No." A pause. "I mean, I suspected something was off when you never talked to me about it directly. But Mom said you were processing emotionally. And you didn't think to call me. I was afraid if I brought it up, you'd change your mind." "Change my mind about a decision I never made." She started crying harder. "I just want to live, Car. Is that so wrong?" I hung up. That evening, my parents showed up at my apartment with 2 police officers. "Our daughter is having a mental health crisis," my mother told them. "She's refusing life-saving medical treatment for her sister." "I'm refusing to have my organs stolen," I told the officers, showing them the forged documents. "They committed fraud and are trying to force me into surgery." The officers looked deeply uncomfortable. "This is a civil matter." "Ma'am," one said to my mother, "you can't force someone to donate an organ." "She already agreed," Mom shrieked. "She's backing out to hurt Vanessa." "I never agreed. Check the signature. Compare it to my actual signature on my driver's license." The officers left. My parents didn't. "You're killing your sister," Dad said flatly. "You're trying to steal my organ. We gave you life. You owe us this. I don't owe you a kidney because you had sex in 1992. Mom slapped me. Hard. "You selfish monster. Vanessa is dying." "Then give her your kidney, Mom." "I'm not a match." "Neither is Dad." "No." Convenient how the only match is the daughter you don't give a damn about. They had no idea what I would do next. First, I went to the hospital in person. Not Mercy General, a different hospital, where I had myself thoroughly tested. Blood work, imaging, everything. The results were illuminating. I was indeed a match for Vanessa. But I also had something else. Polycystic kidney disease markers. The same genetic condition that was killing Vanessa, just not expressed yet. My kidneys were time bombs. "You could be asymptomatic for years," the nephrologist explained, "or it could trigger any time. But with your family history and these markers, keeping both kidneys is medically advisable." I had him document everything. Next, I filed charges: forgery, fraud, attempted coercion for organ harvesting. The detective, Rivera, was horrified. "I've seen people steal identities for money, but for organs? That's a new low." The investigation revealed more. My parents had been planning this for months. They'd accessed my medical records through Vanessa's husband, who worked in medical billing. They had multiple consultations about the donation process, all pretending to be me. But the most damaging evidence came from their own phones. Text messages between them. "Mom, Caroline will never agree. She's too selfish." "Dad, then we don't ask. We tell her after." "Mom, what if she refuses the surgery?" "Dad, we'll guilt her into it. Public pressure. Make her look like a monster." They even created a GoFundMe page. Help Caroline find the courage to save her sister. It had my photo, my name, and a story about how I'd promised to donate but was getting cold feet. $15,000 raised, none of which I knew about. I screenshot everything and posted it online. My parents tried to steal my kidney. Literally. They forged documents to schedule me for organ donation surgery without my consent. They raised money in my name. They committed identity theft, medical fraud, and tried to guilt me into surgery. And now they're calling me a murderer for wanting to keep my own organs. The internet exploded. #KidneyGate started trending. The GoFundMe was shut down for fraud. The hospital launched an investigation. Dr. Matthews, my father's golf buddy who provided the fake psychological evaluation, lost his license. Vanessa called, enraged. "You're destroying our family over a kidney. Our parents destroyed our family by trying to steal my organ. I am dying. And I'm sorry about that, but my kidney won't save you. I have the same genetic markers. I'd be giving you maybe an extra year while potentially triggering my own kidney failure." "You're lying." I sent her my medical records. Silence. "Then, you could still buy me time." "At the cost of my own life?" "I'm your sister. And they're my kidneys." She hung up. The criminal case proceeded quickly. My parents were arrested for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. The image of them in handcuffs made the local news, then national news, then international news. "Parents attempt organ theft from daughter" became a global headline. They were released on bail but faced serious charges. Dad's law practice crumbled. No one wanted an attorney who'd commit fraud for organs. Mom's position at the church, she was treasurer, evaporated when they discovered sheets stolen from one daughter to save another. But Vanessa's reaction was the worst. She went on a media campaign, painting herself as the victim. "My sister would rather watch me die than undergo a simple procedure," she told a morning show. "She's always been jealous of me." I responded with medical facts. The simple procedure has a 3% mortality rate and 20% complication rate. I also have the same genetic disease. My kidney would fail in her body within 18 months. The public turned on her quickly. Then came the twist no one expected. A stranger saw the story. A teacher from Minnesota who'd lost her son in a car accident. She was a match for Vanessa and wanted to donate. "I couldn't save my son," she said, "but maybe I can save someone else's daughter." Vanessa got her kidney. The surgery was successful. She'd live. My parents were convicted. Probation, community service, and massive fines. They lost their house paying legal fees and restitution. They texted me from their downsized apartment. "We did it all for Vanessa, to save her life." "No," I replied. "You did it because you see me as spare parts for your real daughter. You could have saved her yourself." "I could have, if he'd asked, if he'd respected my choice, if he told me the truth about the genetic markers. Instead, he tried to steal from me." Family helps family. Family doesn't forge signatures to harvest organs. It's been 2 years. Vanessa is alive, thriving with her donated kidney. She occasionally texts, trying to rebuild our relationship. "I didn't know about the forgery," she insists. Maybe she didn't, but she knew something was wrong and chose to stay quiet because it benefited her. My parents? They've become cautionary tales in medical ethics textbooks. The case study is titled, "When Family Becomes Predator: Attempted Organ Coercion Through Fraud." Last month, I started showing symptoms. The polycystic kidney disease that runs in our family is beginning to manifest in me. I'll need monitoring, possibly dialysis in the future. If my parents had succeeded in taking my kidney, I'd be dying now. They knew the genetic risk. The medical records they stole showed it clearly. They didn't care. They were willing to sacrifice my life for Vanessa's without even asking. That's not love. That's not family. That's attempted murder with a scalpel and good intentions. They had no idea what I would do next. I survived. I kept my kidneys. And I made sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they really were. Parents who'd harvest their own daughter for spare parts. They wanted to save one daughter by sacrificing another. Instead, they lost both. And they have no one to blame but themselves. The text came while I was adjusting my cap and gown in the mirror, trying to get the gold medical school honors cord to lay just right. 4 years of sleepless nights, brutal exams, and clinical rotations that left me questioning my sanity, all leading to this moment. Can't make it. Your brother qualified for regionals. It's just a piece of paper anyway. We'll celebrate later. Dad. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Behind me, my roommate Priya was curling her hair, her parents' voices echoing from our apartment's living room as they fussed over flower arrangements and restaurant reservations. "Everything okay?" she asked, catching my reflection. "My parents aren't coming," I heard myself say, the words sounding foreign. "What? Why?" "My brother has a golf tournament." She set down the curling iron. Kiera, no, they're not seriously skipping your medical school graduation for golf. But they were. Because that's what the Matthews family did. Orbit around Brandon like he was the sun, while I played the role of distant Pluto, frozen and forgotten at the edge of their universe. I didn't cry. 4 years of medical school had trained that weakness out of me. Instead, I deleted the text and finished getting ready. If they thought this was just about a piece of paper, they understood nothing about what I'd survived to earn it. The auditorium was packed with families clutching bouquets and pride. I walked across that stage alone in spirit, my name echoing in a room full of strangers' applause. Dr. Kiera Matthews, first in my family to graduate college, let alone medical school. Valedictorian. Headed to Johns Hopkins for surgical residency. My parents were watching Brandon hit a little white ball into a hole. Priya's family adopted me for the day, insisting I join their celebration dinner. Her mother kept tearing up, saying how proud my parents must be. I smiled and nodded, the lie easier than the truth. They took pictures of me with my diploma, images that would never grace my parents' mantle next to Brandon's golf trophies. That night, I made a decision. If they couldn't prioritize me on the biggest day of my life, I wouldn't prioritize them on theirs. It wasn't revenge, it was reciprocity. Residency swallowed me whole. 100-hour weeks, back-to-back surgeries, learning to function on fragments of sleep and hospital coffee. My parents called occasionally, conversations that always seemed to center on Brandon's latest tournament or new sponsorship deal. Did I mention I was saving lives? Apparently, that ranked below his new golf club endorsement. When are you coming home? Mom would ask, not because she missed me, but because she needed someone to plan Brandon's birthday party or help with some family event where they could parade their successful children. Well, child, I was the absent one, always working, always unavailable. I'm on trauma rotation, I'd explain. I can't just leave. You work too much, she'd sigh. Brandon manages to balance everything. Brandon's idea of balance was choosing between golf and parties. Mine was choosing between saving a car accident victim and eating lunch. We were not the same. 5 years passed in a blur of surgeries, sleepless nights, and gradual specialization. I chose neurosurgery, the hardest, most demanding specialty. If I was going to be forgotten anyway, might as well be forgotten while doing something extraordinary. My fellowship at Johns Hopkins turned into an attending position. Published papers, speaking engagements, a growing reputation as one of the best young neurosurgeons on the East Coast. My parents knew none of this. They'd never asked, and I'd stopped offering information they didn't want. Then came the call that changed everything. I was between surgeries, scarfing down a protein bar, when my phone lit up. Mom. I almost ignored it, probably calling about Brandon's engagement party or some other event I'd be expected to attend despite the 6-hour drive. But something made me answer. Kiera? Her voice was different. Smaller. Scared. It's Dad. He's in the hospital. My heart stopped, then resumed at double speed. What happened? A stroke. They're saying he needs surgery. Brain surgery. The doctor here says it's complicated, that we might need to transfer him to a bigger hospital. Where are you? She named the regional hospital near their house. Decent for basic care, but for a complex neurovascular case, not ideal. I'll make some calls, I said, already mentally reviewing the best neurovascular surgeons within transfer distance. Could you come? Please? We're so scared, and Brandon doesn't understand what the doctors are saying. Of course Brandon was there. Of course they were scared now, when they needed something. I'm in the middle of my shift, Mom. I have surgery scheduled. It's just a job, she cried. Your father might be dying. Just a job. Like my graduation was just a piece of paper. I'll see what I can do, I said and hung up. I stood in the hallway, still in my scrubs from the craniotomy I just finished, and felt the universe laugh at its own cruel joke. 5 years of silence, and now they needed exactly what I trained for. I made the calls. Got the scans sent to my office, reviewed them with the detached professionalism that had saved hundreds of lives. Anterior cerebral artery aneurysm, partially ruptured. Complicated but manageable, if you had the right surgeon. I was the right surgeon, one of maybe 3 on the East Coast who could handle this particular complexity with the best odds of full recovery. My phone rang again, this time Brandon. Kiera, thank God. Mom's losing it. Can you get here? Talk to the doctors. None of us understand this stuff. I am a doctor, Brandon. I mean, yeah, but like a real doctor who does this stuff. I laughed, actually laughed. I'm a neurosurgeon. I literally do this stuff. Silence. Wait, what? I thought you were like, in general practice or something. 5 years. 5 years of residency, fellowship, and practice, and my family thought I was a general practitioner. I'm one of the best neurosurgeons at Johns Hopkins, I said slowly. I specialize in exactly what Dad needs. Holy shit, can you fix him? I could. The question was, would I? I'll review his case, I said neutrally. I called my chief, explained the situation. He immediately offered to clear my schedule, have my father transferred to Hopkins, give me the OR. Family comes first, he said. Take all the time you need. Family comes first, unless it's a golf tournament or an engagement party, or literally any Brandon-related event. I made a decision. Actually, I told my chief, I think I'll refer the case to Dr. Hawthorne. He's excellent with aneurysms. But you're better, he said, confused. This is your father. Exactly why I shouldn't operate. Too emotionally involved, it wouldn't be professional. It was a valid excuse. Surgeons often didn't operate on family, but we both knew I bent that rule before, operating on Priya's mother when she needed emergency surgery. The difference was Priya's mother had held me when I cried after graduation. I texted my mother the referral information. Dr. Hawthorne was good. Not the best, but good. Dad would probably be fine. Probably. The explosion came an hour later. What do you mean you're not coming? Mom screamed through the phone. He's your father. And Brandon's tournament was just golf, I replied calmly. But you both chose that over my medical school graduation. Called it just a piece of paper, remember? That's different. How? How is it different? I needed you then. You chose Brandon. You need me now. I'm choosing my responsibilities here. You're a doctor. You took an oath. I'm referring you to an excellent surgeon. That fulfills my oath. Coming to hold your hand while you worry, that's family. And according to you, family obligations are flexible when something more important comes up. Kiera, please. Did you know I graduated first in my class? That I've published 12 papers on neurovascular surgery? That I was nominated for the Young Surgeon Award last year? Silence. No, I continued, because you never asked. Because Brandon had tournaments and parties and a very important golf career that somehow always trumped your daughter becoming a brain surgeon. We're proud of you. Name one thing I've done in the last 5 years. One achievement, one milestone, one moment of my career. She couldn't. I saved hundreds of lives, I said. Learned to operate on the thing that makes us human. Achieved everything I dreamed of and more. And you missed it all for golf. Your father could die. He won't. Dr. Hawthorne is excellent. Dad will get good care, the same way I got through medical school without you. I hung up and went back to work. Saved 3 lives that day, including a 6-year-old with a tumor everyone said was inoperable. Her parents cried when I told them she'd make a full recovery. They'd been there for every appointment, every scan, every fearful moment. That's what family looked like. The calls and texts came in waves. Brandon, aunts, uncles, cousins, all suddenly aware I existed now that they needed something. The family neurosurgeon who'd been invisible until convenience made me crucial. Dr. Hawthorne performed the surgery 2 days later. I monitored from afar, professional courtesy. The procedure went well, no complications. Dad would recover fully, though rehab would take months. I sent flowers. The card read, "Glad the surgery went well. Dr. Matthews. Not love, Kiera, not your daughter. Just my title and last name. Let them taste their own medicine." Brandon called the next week. Dad's doing better. He can talk again. Keeps asking for you. That's nice. Are you seriously going to hold a grudge forever? It was one graduation. It wasn't one anything, Brandon. It was everything. Every school play, every science fair, every award ceremony. Remember when I won the state biology competition? You had mini golf. Remember when I got into medical school? You had a practice round. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. Fair would have been parents who showed up. Fair would have been a family that celebrated my achievements even half as much as they celebrated your mediocre golf career. I went pro. And I went to medical school. One of us saves lives. The other plays an expensive hobby. But sure, Tell me again how your regional qualification was more important than my doctorate. He hung up. 3 months into Dad's recovery, Mom tried a different approach. A letter, handwritten, delivered to my office. "We failed you," it began. At least she led with honesty. She detailed their regrets, the recognition of the imbalance, the desire to make amends. She mentioned Dad crying when he realized I wouldn't be his surgeon, the way he'd whispered my name during recovery, how they'd started looking up my publications and achievements. "We see now what we missed," she wrote. "You became extraordinary without us. Despite us. We're so proud and so ashamed." It was everything I'd wanted to hear for 20 years, and it was 5 years too late. I wrote back, brief and professional. "I appreciate your letter. I'm glad Dad is recovering well. I've built a fulfilling life and career here, surrounded by colleagues and friends who value my contributions. I wish you all the best." No forgiveness. No anger. Just the polite distance you give a stranger who'd once wronged you. They started sending invitations after that. Family dinners, holidays, Brandon's wedding. I declined them all, always with valid excuses. Surgeries, conferences, research. The same kind of important obligations that had kept them from my graduation. Last month, I won the Young Surgeon Award I'd been nominated for. The ceremony was in the same auditorium where I'd graduated medical school, full circle in the best way. My chosen family was there, Priya, my chief, colleagues who'd become siblings, the families of patients whose lives I'd saved. During my acceptance speech, I talked about support systems. How success isn't achieved in isolation, but through the people who show up, who celebrate your victories and comfort your defeats, who see your worth even when you doubt it yourself. To those who weren't there, I concluded, looking directly at the camera broadcasting the ceremony, you missed something special. But to those who were, who are, who continue to be, you are why I stand here today. The video went viral in medical circles. Colleagues from around the country reached out with congratulations. My inbox flooded with opportunities, collaborations, speaking engagements. Buried in the messages was one from my father, a single line. "We should have been there." Yes, they should have. But they taught me something valuable with their absence. That family isn't about blood or obligation or showing up only when you need something. It's about choosing each other consistently, especially when it's inconvenient. They chosen Brandon's golf fame over my graduation. I'd chosen my actual responsibilities over their emergency. The only difference was I'd given them excellent medical referrals while they'd given me a text message. Now, sitting in my office overlooking the Baltimore Harbor, surrounded by degrees they never saw me earn and awards they never saw me win, I feel at peace. Not the bitter peace of revenge, but the clean peace of clarity. They need me now. Need my expertise, my connections, my success. The daughter they overlooked became everything they never imagined, without their support or presence. And that's the real triumph. Not that I could withhold my skills when they needed them. Dr. Hawthorne did fine work. But that I'd learned to save myself first, to build a life where their absence was no longer an want but simply a fact. They skipped my graduation for golf. I skipped their crisis for surgery. Somewhere in that exchange, I found my worth had nothing to do with their attendance. The best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's succeeding so thoroughly that their approval becomes irrelevant. It's saving lives while they save par. It's being too busy changing the world to notice they finally noticed you. My pager beeps. Another emergency, another life hanging in the balance. I scrub in, steady hands preparing to do what I do best. In OR3, a team waits for me, my real family, the ones who show up. "What do we have?" I ask. 43-year-old male, ruptured aneurysm, came in through emergency. Just another case. Just another life to save. Just another day being the doctor my parents never saw me become. And that's more than enough. The silver urn lay on its side among coffee grounds and yesterday's newspaper, my daughter's name. Lily still visible through the garbage bag's translucent plastic. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't comprehend that my parents had thrown away all I had left of my baby girl. "What are you doing?" Mom's voice cut through my shock. She stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, irritation written across her face. I already took the trash out. "You threw away her ashes." My voice came out hollow, disconnected from the screen building in my chest. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes. "Stop being dramatic, Meredith. It's been 6 months. You need to stop living in the past. 6 months. As if grief had an expiration date. As if losing my daughter to a drunk driver on her way home from kindergarten came with a timeline for recovery. As if the urn that held all that remained of my 5-year-old could be discarded like expired milk. I reached into the bin with shaking hands, pulling out the urn, wiping coffee grounds from its surface. Inside, sealed in plastic, were Lily's ashes, safe despite my mother's cruelty. The relief made my knees weak. Your sister's having a real baby, Mom continued, sipping her coffee like we were discussing the weather. Not a memory. A real, living baby. And your moping is ruining her pregnancy experience. Dad appeared behind her, already dressed for golf. He took in the scene, me kneeling by the garbage, clutching Lily's urn, and shook his head. Time to move on, Meredith. Diana needs positivity right now. Diana, my younger sister who'd announced her pregnancy at Lily's funeral, who'd complained that my grief was bringing down the vibe at her gender reveal, who'd asked if she could have Lily's bedroom for a nursery since it's not like you need it anymore. You threw away my daughter, I said, standing slowly, the urn pressed against my chest. We threw away an urn, Dad corrected. Your daughter is gone. Holding on to ashes won't bring her back. But it might stop Diana from enjoying her pregnancy, Mom added. Do you know how hard it is for her, seeing you like this? She's afraid to be happy about her baby because you're always crying. Always crying. I cried at Diana's baby shower last week when they played the same song from Lily's funeral. I excused myself quietly, spent 10 minutes in the bathroom pulling myself together, then returned with a smile and enthusiastically participated in every game. But apparently, those 10 minutes of private grief were too much. I'm sorry my dead child is inconvenient for you, I said. See, Mom gestured at me with her mug. This attitude. This is why we had to do something. You're toxic, Meredith. Your grief is toxic. I looked at them, really looked at them. My parents, who'd raised me, who'd been there when Lily was born, who'd watched her take her first steps in this very kitchen. They stood there united against me, frustrated that I hadn't moved on from losing my only child quickly enough to make my sister's pregnancy more pleasant. When Diana has her baby, I said quietly, I hope you never have to understand what you've done to me today. Oh, stop it, Dad said. We did you a favor. That urn was holding you back. I walked past them, still clutching Lily's ashes. In my old room, my childhood room where I'd moved back after the accident, unable to face our empty house alone. I saw they'd already started changes. Boxes labeled Diana's baby were stacked in the corner. Paint samples in pastel colors were taped to the wall. On my dresser, where Lily's photo had sat, was a note. Please be out by the end of the month. Diana needs to nest. Mom. They were erasing her. Erasing us. All traces of the granddaughter who'd baked cookies with Mom last Christmas, who'd helped Dad in the garden last spring, who'd filled this house with laughter and sticky handprints and joy. Gone, because her memory was inconvenient to their living grandchild's gestation period. I sat on the bed, phone in hand, and made a call. Morgan, it's Meredith. I need to ask a favor. Morgan had been Lily's teacher. She'd spoken at the funeral about how Lily always shared her snacks, how she taught the other kids to write their names, how she'd been sunshine in human form. She'd also lost a child years ago, something we'd bonded over in the awful aftermath. Anything, Morgan said immediately. What's wrong? My parents threw Lily's ashes in the trash. I need somewhere to go, today. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Pack what matters. What mattered? I looked around the room. Lily's favorite stuffed elephant, the quilt she'd slept with, her drawings, carefully preserved in a folder, the video of her kindergarten graduation 2 weeks before the accident. Everything else was just stuff. As I packed, I heard Mom and Diana laughing downstairs. Diana must have arrived for their morning pregnancy yoga and smoothie session. Their joy felt like glass in my ears. I made one more call, this one to a number I'd saved but never used. Garrison Family Law, how can I help you? I need to make an appointment. It's about theft and emotional distress. My parents threw away my daughter's cremated remains. The receptionist's professional tone cracked. They what? Hold on, let me get Mr. Garrison directly. By the time Morgan arrived, I had 2 suitcases and a plan. My parents were in the living room with Diana. Baby catalogs spread across the coffee table. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, not getting up. "Away," I said. Diana rubbed her belly. "Don't be so dramatic, Mer. They didn't mean anything by it." "They threw away my daughter's ashes," I said flatly. Diana shrugged. "It's not like Lily knew. She's gone." The casual cruelty of it, from the aunt who'd taken Lily for ice cream every Friday, who'd called her my best girl, stole my breath. "You're right," I said finally. "She is gone. And apparently so is the family I thought I had." Dad stood then. "If you leave now, don't expect to come back. We're done enabling your wallowing." Enabling. They'd thrown away my child's ashes and called it enabling. "I need you to say that again," I said, pulling out my phone. "For clarity." "What are you doing?" "Recording." "Please, Dad, tell me again how you're done enabling my wallowing over my dead 5-year-old. His face flushed. "Put that away." "No, you threw away my daughter's remains. You gave me an eviction notice. You've made your position clear. I'm just documenting it." "You're being ridiculous," Mom snapped. "Am I?" "Diana, would you like to repeat what you just said? About how Lily doesn't know because she's gone." Diana's hand stilled on her belly. "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. You all mean it. My grief is inconvenient. My daughter's memory is inconvenient. Well, don't worry. We'll be gone within the hour." I left with Morgan, Lily's urn in my lap, everything that mattered in her Honda. My parents didn't try to stop me. Diana called out something about being there when I came to my senses, but I didn't respond. Morgan's spare room was small but clean. That night, she helped me set up a shelf for Lily's urn, surrounded by her photos and favorite toys. It wasn't much, but it was more respect than my parents had shown. The lawyer, Mr. Garrison, was appalled. "They threw away human remains. That's not just emotional distress, it's illegal in this state. Improper handling of cremated remains is a misdemeanor." "I don't want them arrested," I said. "I just want them to understand." "What you want," he interrupted gently, "is for them to face consequences. That's not the same as revenge." He was right, so we proceeded. The cease and desist letter arrived at my parents' house 3 days later. Diana called me screaming. "You're suing Mom and Dad." "Are you insane? I'm 7 months pregnant. The stress." "They threw away Lily's ashes," I repeated, my new mantra. "Get over it. God, Meredith, she's dead. She's been dead for 6 months. Move on." "Like you all did. So quickly you announced your pregnancy at her funeral?" Silence. Then, "That's not fair. Life goes on." "Yes," I agreed. "It does. It goes on without you." I hung up and blocked her number. The social media post went live that evening. Not on my main account. I deactivated that after the funeral, tired of grief vultures and tone-deaf comments. But on the memorial page I created for Lily, followed by hundreds who'd known and loved her. Today, I found my daughter's ashes in my parents' garbage bin. They felt her memory was interfering with my sister's pregnancy. They told me to stop living in the past and focus on the real baby coming. I'm sharing this because grief has no timeline, and no one has the right to dictate how long you mourn your child. Lily was not an inconvenience. Her memory is not toxic, and anyone who thinks otherwise has no place in my life. I attached one photo. Lily's urn in the garbage, coffee grounds visible on its surface. The response was immediate and volcanic. Morgan showed me the comments as they poured in. Lily's babysitter, her pediatrician, the mom of her best friend, parents from her kindergarten, all expressing horror, outrage, disbelief. Several offered places to stay, support, love. But it was the comment from my grandmother that broke the dam. My dad's mother, who lived in a nursing home 2 hours away. "I am ashamed of my son. Lily was light itself, and her memory deserves honor. Meredith, you have a room here if you need it. Bring my great-granddaughter's ashes. We'll keep them safe together." My parents, who controlled Grandma's visits, who filtered her calls, who told her I was too unstable to see since the funeral, had no idea she figured out Facebook with the help of a kind nurse. The family fracture was instant and complete. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone picked sides. Most picked mine, especially after the security footage surfaced. Oh yes, security footage. My parents had installed cameras after a break-in last year. They'd forgotten about them in their eagerness to erase my daughter. but the cameras remembered everything. Mom taking the urn from my room while I was at grief counseling. Dad nodding approval. The two of them discussing how this was for the best and tough love. Mr. Garrison was thrilled. This changes everything. We have proof of intent, premeditation, and conspiracy. My phone rang constantly. Mom, Dad, Diana, they're flying monkeys. All blocked. The only call I took was from my elderly grandmother. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice paper thin but steel strong, "I've changed my will. The house, the trust, everything that would have gone to your father now goes to you. And I've made it clear, if they contest it, they get nothing." "Grandma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. They threw away my great-granddaughter. They threw away you. Let them live with those choices." Deanna's baby shower was the next week. I heard about it from Morgan, who heard from others. Apparently, it was poorly attended. Several people, after seeing my post, declined invitations. The ones who went reported it as awkward, tense, with Mom snapping at anyone who mentioned me or Lily. Good. 2 weeks later, Diana went into labor. Dad called from a blocked number, leaving a voicemail. "Your sister had the baby, a girl, 7 pounds. Maybe now you can stop punishing us and be part of this family again." Part of the family, as if I hadn't always been. As if I'd removed myself instead of being thrown away like my daughter's ashes. I didn't respond, but I did send a gift to the hospital addressed to the baby, a silver bracelet engraved with "May you always be cherished." The card read, "I hope you never become an inconvenience. Aunt Meredith." Diana texted from another new number. "That was cruel." I responded once. Cruelty is throwing away a grieving mother's only connection to her dead child because it interferes with your pregnancy glow. Then I blocked that number too. It's been a year now. I live with Grandma, taking care of her in exchange for room and board. Lily's urn sits on the mantel, surrounded by fresh flowers that Grandma insists on buying weekly. She deserves beauty, Grandma says, patting the urn each morning like she used to pat Lily's head. The lawsuit is ongoing. My parents' lawyer argues it was a misunderstanding, that they thought I'd want to move forward. Hard to argue when the security footage shows Mom saying, "Maybe if we get rid of this, she'll snap out of it." I haven't seen Deanna's baby. I've heard she looks like Lily, which must kill my sister every time someone mentions it. I heard my parents are struggling, that Dad took early retirement because colleagues saw the post, that Mom's book club asked her not to return. I've heard they tell people I'm unstable, that I overreacted, that I'm keeping their grandchild from them out of spite. They're wrong about the last part. I'm not keeping anyone from them. I'm protecting myself and honoring my daughter's memory by staying away from people who literally threw her away. Lily would be 6 now, starting 1st grade, learning to read, losing her first tooth. Instead, she lives in an urn on Grandma's mantel, in the hearts of those who loved her, in a memorial garden at her school where children plant flowers each spring. She doesn't live in the past. She lives in the present, in every choice I make to surround myself with people who understand that grief has no timeline, that love doesn't end with death, that memories are not inconveniences to be discarded when new life comes along. My phone buzzes. Morgan, sending a photo from the memorial garden. New sunflowers, reaching toward the sky. Lily's flowers are the tallest, she writes, just like she would have been. I smile, touching the urn gently. My parents thought they were freeing me by throwing her away. Instead, they freed me from them, from the obligation to shrink my grief to make room for their comfort. Lily is not in the past. She's in every sunrise I watch with Grandma, every flower we plant, every story we tell. She's in the love that refuses to be buried in garbage bins or silenced by new babies or erased by those who find mourning inconvenient. She's my daughter. Forever, no matter who that bothers. And that's the only timeline that matters.